President-elect Joe Biden is weeks away from taking office, but his presidency already has a growing conspiracy following it. It is called the Great Reset. The theory accuses Mr. Biden of playing a part in a global economic plan that will ultimately lead to a dystopian society. The theory even calls Mr. Biden's campaign slogan, "Build Back Better," a front for the conspiracy. To talk more about the so-called Great Reset, we have CBSN technology reporter Dan Patterson. Hi, Dan. Boy, the conspiracy theories are coming fast and furious these days. I can't keep up. So can you explain how the Great Reset conspiracy started and where this phrase actually came from?
Yeah, so this is kind of a mishmash of a number of different conspiracy theories, Tanya, and they all kind of borrow from each other, and some of them have been floating around since the very early days of the pandemic. So the conspiracy alleges an end to global capitalism and a post-apocalyptic future where those who resist the COVID vaccine will be imprisoned. It borrows or takes from Biden's Build Back Better campaign and then kind of amalgamates it with a conspiracy theory about Bill Gates and his plans to vaccinate and track everyone with a secret tracker, along with part of a New World Order conspiracy run by the World Economic Forum, who actually have COVID response white papers, policy papers written called the Great Reset. Now, this had nothing to do with the conspiracy, but they kind of took all of those components and mashed it together into this uber conspiracy. The ironic part is, if you've never heard of the World Economic Forum, it's a small think tank organization that publishes white papers and policy papers, and they throw events and conferences. One of their events in Davos every year features speakers who are often world leaders or corporate leaders. When you walk through Davos, it's almost impossible to find a socialist. These are some of the preeminent capitalists in the world. So it's a really interesting conspiracy that is kind of evolving in the face of reality.
Right. It's interesting that the leap went from, the World Economic Forum that, as you said, sort of celebrates capitalism on one level to, creating this capitalism on one level to creating this theory that's going to bring it down on a global level. What exactly is Mr. Biden's alleged role in this, and how did entangling him in it come about?
So President-elect Biden's actual policy is about rebuilding the U.S. economy, and there are a number of tentpoles that have been articulated, and he has recently announced an economic team. It's pretty easy to go and vet and read more about this information. This plot takes the Biden slogan and then alleges that the president-elect will use former Obama staffers to reset capitalism, and that Biden is actually in control of this plot or this scheme to take over capitalism and replace it with socialism. Again, they use his policy papers and his Build Back Better policies to come up with this idea that Biden is somehow taking over the world.
So you and I have discussed before how a lot of these conspiracy theories are fueled by social media and the internet. That certainly helps to explain some of their popularity, or at least, people probably wouldn't have heard of a lot of these things otherwise. But why is it that people are so willing to believe in these global conspiracies? Why are they so suspicious of institutions? What is that saying about the society on a larger level that people are so fearful and suspicious of their own government?
Well, Tanya, it's hard for me to say why each individual feels the way they do. But look, our government has given people a lot of reasons to distrust them, going back through most of the 20th century. However, what we're talking about here is a kind of distrust of institution on a very large scale, an unprecedented scale. And what we know about 2016, one of the goals of our chief adversary, Russia, was to kind of sow seeds of doubt. They used propaganda and disinformation to seed information or seed social media, the kind of the fissures of pre-existing cracks. Some of these cracks were about race relations. Some of these cracks had to do with economic relations. Some of these cracks had to do with smaller fissures that are harder for us to identify. But we know that our adversaries kind of planted some of these seeds and worked those seams. But what we also know is that a lot of the disinformation, at least according to people like recently fired CISA chief Chris Krebs, is that a number of the people in the president's own administration pulled open those fissures. So these cracks were started in 2016, and then disinformation on social media kind of amplified or widened those gaps. So, you know, I don't know why people believe what they believe, but I do know that social media does a very good job of kind of siloing us into particular groups. And when we are in these groups, confirmation bias can take over, and that feeds those fissures, those cracks. So these are loopholes, exploits, and they're often used by those who have political motives.
Right. It's interesting to me, though, and I guess it takes a deeper dive, why there is such fertile ground for this misinformation. You know, you and I could discuss this ad nauseum, as I'm sure we will, Dan, but it seems to me that it points to some larger deficiencies that, you know, we have to try and figure out. But in any case, Dan Patterson, thank you so much for joining us. It's great to see you.
Great to see you, Tanya.